Hello and welcome to the Kaiju is in the Details. I'm Ian.
I'm Haru.
And this time we watched 1956 Rodan. We're finally back to good old-fashioned Toho Kaiju films by Ishiro Honda. Haru, what'd you think about this movie?
It was fucking good.
Rodan's my favorite monster. This isn't my favorite kaiju film, but Rodan's my favorite monster. But the only reason it's not my favorite kaiju film is because we have Godzilla as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I don't think it's quite as good as Godzilla as far as the films go, but
although interestingly it hits similar
there.
beats.
It does hit similar beats, and I mean part of that might just be the the people who worked on it.
Same people making it.
Yeah, so they kind of use the same formula, but
I think what holds it back is that the human plot is not as strong.
Yeah.
The human plot kind of stops mattering after a certain point, and I think that kind of drags down the film a bit. I'm telling you, the human plot is the most essential part of a kaiju film. If your human plot sucks, the kaiju film will suck. It doesn't matter how cool the kaiju scenes are. If your human plot falters at any step, it ruins the film.
Yeah.
They're absolutely essential. You cannot have a good kaiju film without a human plot and without a good human plot.
Yeah, you know what? You make a good point there.
It bugs me so much when people say, just get rid of the humans. No. You don't understand. You would be fucking bored if it was just the kaiju shit.
Yeah.
There would be no stakes.
If you're telling me that your idea of a kaiju film is basically the last 20 minutes of this movie, that's not an entertaining hour and a half of my life.
Yeah.
It might be an entertaining 5 minutes, and then I'd get bored of it.
It'd make a good clip show on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of views on videos that are just all the kaiju scenes of a kaiju movie, right? Mm-hmm. But that's 2 minutes of footage, right? In 2 minutes of footage, and then another 2 minutes for another scene, another 2 minutes for another scene. They'll just be uploaded as separate videos. For an hour and a half movie, you have to have a plot. You gotta have a plot.
I kind of wonder, actually, if all the people saying to just remove the humans from the kaiju films, if they just have the brain of, a 7-year-old. Because that's what I was with Star Wars when I was a 7-year-old. I was like, oh yeah, the battles are the best part, and the lightsaber duels are the best part. Get rid of all this boring dialogue and plot. And then, as an adult watching the Star Wars movies, I'm like, oh yeah, give me all the dialogue and plot, please, because I can only handle so much of, just battles and lightsabers.
I think a lot of it comes from people. This famously, audiences don't know what they want. They don't actually know what they want. Mm-hmm. You have to force feed them what they want because they don't know what they want. And these people haven't actually seen a proper Godzilla film before. What they've seen are highlight reels on YouTube and the American Godzilla films, which have terrible human plots. So they think, oh, well, it must be the human plot that's the problem. So we have to get rid of the human plot and that'll fix it. No, you just have to make a good human plot, dummy.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? People, never know what they want. This is an issue in video games. This is an issue in just literally any kind of media.
Oh yeah, I fucking hate yellow paint on the ladder. Oh yeah, are you gonna enjoy looking around for 10 hours trying to find the ladder?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
This stupidest controversy, oh, yellow paint in my games. It's go fuck yourself. You're playing a video game to play a video game. You don't need the you can suspend a little bit of disbelief.
If they put yellow paint on the ladder, it's because someone in testing could not find the ladder.
Yeah.
They don't put that there for no reason.
So basically,
they don't spend extra time putting paint on the fucking ladders for no reason.
Basically, the paint haters are the ones that just want us to skip playtesting and go straight to just release the game.
They're the reason why beta tests are now just like another publicity stunt instead of an actual beta test.
Yeah.
But this film, I think like I said, it hits a lot of the same beats as Godzilla, but its human plot is a little weaker.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of trauma in this human plot, a lot of things going on, but not really much time to connect with anyone, or much like attempt to connect with them. I don't know. There's almost like too many characters, perhaps.
Yeah.
And it never really settles on. Obviously, Kawamura. Sorry, I was trying to figure out. So, it's spelled like Kawamura. But I believe the last A is being swallowed, as is the case in Japanese sometimes. Or not the last A, but the WA. The A in the WA is being swallowed, so it's not Kawamura, it's Kawamura. Who's the mining engineer. He is like our main character, kinda, but he gets incapacitated partway through the film, and he doesn't really recover until a while in.
Yeah.
When he suddenly remembers Rodan exists. By the way, speaking of Rodan, Haru, what did you? I gotta know, what did you think when you saw the Mega Nulon?
The Meganulon? You mean the
bug?
The bug thing? Yeah.
The bug creature.
So,
because like I don't know if you know what Rodan is before, if you knew what Rodan was before we watched this movie.
I had a vague idea. I think you might have shown me a picture once before or something like that.
Maybe.
But I didn't have I didn't have a clear expectation in my mind of oh, this is gonna be Rodan when he shows up. I was just like, well, you know what? Probably whatever giant creature we run into is gonna be our kaiju. And early on we see these basically giant grub things, and would it be weird for me to say that the grub didn't seem to have main character appeal?
No, I think that makes perfect sense. You can tell that the Mega Nulon suit is not... It was an afterthought, in a way. Was not the primary focus of Eiji Tsuburaya when he was designing the costumes.
And we've seen kaiju films over the course of this podcast where the kaiju itself is kind of subpar, so it wouldn't be the first time it's happened, but
yeah, I mean, this costume is about on par with the ants from Them.
Yeah.
Maybe a little better.
But maybe my expectations are just higher when it comes to Toho.
Eiji Tsuburaya knows how to make a fucking costume, so you know.
Yeah. But so when I first saw the our grub thing, I had, I guess, 3 thoughts in my head all at once. The first thought is oh my god, if I saw that in real life, I would probably shit myself and scream and cry.
Yeah, good reaction.
Second thought was, you know what? The more I look at this, the more I think it's actually kind of a little bit cute. And the third reaction is wow, we're 10 minutes into the kaiju film and we already see a giant a giant monster.
Although, to be clear, when we say giant monster here, we mean like bigger than a man. This thing is not all that big. It's not even taller than a man. It's just bigger because it's long.
It's what would be a good comparison? Like maybe a little bit smaller than a horse. Like take away the height of a horse and add that to the length of the horse, and that's about the size of this creature.
Yeah, it's like if like a jaguar had like a big long insect tail.
Yeah.
That extended. So the Meganulon are dragonfly nymphs. They're ancient dragonfly nymphs. They're based on Meganura, which was a real life creature that existed. Meganura were giant dragonflies that existed in the not Precambrian, the post-Cambrian era. Of course, it's not Precambrian. They didn't have fucking big insects. You didn't have big anything in the Precambrian era. Sorry. But yeah, these are actual things that existed. Kind of. Not in the way they were portrayed in this movie, but we will actually see them again in another Godzilla movie.
Oh.
The Meganulon will return. But we're gonna have to wait until the early 2000s.
Aww.
Before we see them again. And they'll look very different. But yeah, the Meganulons, they're so one thing I find interesting in this like chronological look through these kaiju films is like, what are the writers and directors taking inspiration from when they create these kaiju? And so one of them is like just this discovery of ancient giant dragonflies, which you were talking a couple episodes ago about that BBC show, the Monsters Walk Among Us. That's what that's about, or at least a part of it is the giant insect phenomena. You have the giant centipede. I don't remember the name of it, Arthropleura or something like that.
Yeah.
And the dragonflies are part of that same thing. There's this fascination with that. But our main creature that is featured in this creature feature is a pteranodon. Rodan, which is made more obvious if you read the original Japanese title, Sora no Daikaijū Radon, giant monster of the sky, Radon. That's right, its name isn't Rodan, its name is Radon, but we changed it here. I don't know why.
Americans just love butchering words that are not hard to say.
To be fair, Radon, I guess like it looks like the Radon.
That could be it, actually. You know what? You got a good point there.
And it's also just the Ra from Pteranodon, and then the Don from Pteranodon. Ra, Don. But the thing is that the name is actually, the Japanese love doing this. It's a double pun. It's pun. It's Radon as in like Pteranodon, but it also sounds like Ladon in Japanese because L and R are the same for them, which is a mythical dragon of Greek legend, I believe.
That's neat.
What did you think of my boy Rodan?
He is pretty cool, and he sounds like an airplane.
That is noted. People do tend to think he sounds like an airplane. So his roar was made using the same contrabass technique that Akira Ifukube used to make the Godzilla roar. But then he layered a bunch of recordings of people talking and then sped them up. So if you slow down the footage, or the audio, you can actually hear what they're saying.
That's interesting.
So that's what gets that weird like fluctuation sound. And that's why it has that kind of sound to it, because it's the Godzilla roar sped up with that. So it's that kind of sound, but like sped up significantly, so it makes more of a impact. And then the wild fluctuations after that is from all the people talking noises sped up, so you can't actually understand what they're saying.
There's just a level of creativity in sound design that I just like underappreciate.
Sound design is so cool,
because
dude.
Like the best sound designers can find inspiration in the most mundane things and make it sound actually kind of like, sound like how they want it to sound. Because, like, I would never think of just like, oh, I'm trying to make a monster roar? Well, let me just get a bunch of recordings of people talking and mess around with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this roar is going to be used again in a lot of different other kaiju films. We're going to see it again when we cover the Heisei era, because both King Ghidorah and Batra use the sound, although slightly edited. It's very funny. But for now, Rodan owns this roar entirely.
Hell yeah.
For now. I guess I should explain why Rodan is my favorite kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the explanation is not very good. So it's because he was my favorite child when I was he was my favorite kaiju when I was a kid. That's basically the reason why. And the reason why he was my favorite kaiju when I was a kid is because I don't know why, but as a kid, I really like things that move fast. My favorite superhero is the Flash. My favorite kaiju is Rodan, the one that can move at supersonic speeds. I like fast.
Okay.
I don't know, and I just still my favorite because of that. It's not a particularly good explanation, but to be fair, that's partly because Toho refuses to give us any reason to like Rodan, because they refuse to use him in any meaningful way. But you have to admit, he is pretty fast.
Yeah.
Fast enough to make a sonic boom, which is another thing. It's like, yeah, sonic booms are pretty recent. In 1956, we only recently have jets that can actually do that. So now we're like, oh yeah, sonic booms. That's like a pretty cool thing to use in a monster movie, right?
Yeah.
So that's another like one of those like, oh yeah, this is for like something recent that is just like floating around in the creators' minds as they make this movie. What do you think of the effects in this one? Or if you have something else to say, go ahead.
The effects are pretty neat. Like, they're not super realistic, but also I don't mind or care. They kind of just have their own charm to them. Because, like, the tanks look like toy tanks.
And they are. Like, they just straight up are. But they're well-made toy tanks. This is like the era of fucking well-made model tanks and planes and shit. Especially in Japan. This is peak Japan model culture like time.
Yeah.
Before all model culture was taken over by Gundam.
Honestly though, my favorite effect in the entire film was like the earthquake, like the ground, like
the ground shaking,
moving,
the ground exploding.
Yeah.
This is our first time seeing them play around with dirt.
Yeah.
Because every film up until now takes place in like Tokyo or Osaka. Like it takes place in a city, or I guess Raids Again had a big mountain of ice as well. But that's different from dirt. Oh, we should also mention this is our first color film too, so you also have to take that into account. Because when you're dealing with color versus black and white, things have to like look the right color.
Yeah.
Although I will say the color grading in this film, I don't know if it's just because of age, but it's a little yellow. Everything's a little bit yellow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Earth. These earthen effects, like building these massive, like mountains out of just dirt, to look like actual mountains, like to look like full-size mountains. This is like the first time we get to see that happening, and it is going to become a staple as these fights move out of the cities and eventually into just a fucking dirt quarry. Because it turns out that it's a lot easier to just pile a bunch of dirt and then make it look like it has tree growth on it. Then it's easier to do that than to build a whole model city that's accurate to every fucking detail. And I mean every fucking detail. You can see they even like replicate all the advertisements. You couldn't do that shit today.
Yeah.
Those companies would sue you. How dare you destroy the Asahi beer logo with Rodan? I'm going to need to sue you. I said that wrong. Asahi, not Asahi. Silly me.
Yeah. Speaking of the destruction in this one is pretty neat. It doesn't hit quite as hard as like the destruction of Tokyo and Godzilla, but like it's still like somewhat impactful. And like,
I love the scenes of wind destroying things in these movies.
Yeah.
I think that's super cool. I think the big problem with this movie is that Rodan's costume is really bulky and hard to move. And so its destruction scenes where it's destroying things on its own kind of lack a lot of impact.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's like one scene where it's just like Rodan standing there, flapping its wings, going while the army shoots at it for a while, and it just kind of goes on a little too long.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of the scenes towards the end where they're just like
reusing the same footage over and over again,
firing everything they have, it's just like it is so like it's honestly kind of boring.
Yeah, it gets long in the tooth on the destruction sequences, which is a shame because that should be the exciting part.
It kind of feels like that's sort of a trend in kaiju movies. It's like a lot of the ones that we've seen so far haven't quite found that balance of like, what's an appropriate amount of time to do some sort of spectacle, flashy ending where we kill the kaiju without it dragging on too long.
Yeah. Well, an interesting thing about that is that these films, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but the way that Toho makes kaiju films, and the way that other studios will make kaiju films in Japan, specifically, after this, because of how Toho does it, is that there's two teams. There is the normal team that does like the human stuff, and then there's the tokusatsu team that does the special effects stuff. And so in a way, Ishiro Honda isn't like the full director of this or Godzilla Raids Again, or any of the later Godzilla films that he directs. He's a co-director with Eiji Tsuburaya, and he just has final like cut privileges. So like he can cut whatever of Eiji Tsuburaya stuff that he wants, but whatever Eiji Tsuburaya films is what he has.
That's kind of neat.
It's an interesting model for it. And it works out because like these films do really well and they work. They look really nice. I mean, like letting Eiji Tsuburaya have like complete creative control over the special effects. Eiji Tsuburaya and his team, I should say, not to, don't reify the man, is like part of why these films look the way they do. But I think in some ways that might be why there's so much of that. I also think like the movie's only an hour and 20, So if you don't have a lot of else going on, you're just gonna keep putting in the more the fighting scenes, the special effects scenes.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what caused it, but those are like some ideas I have onto what might have caused it. You know?
Yeah.
I also don't really know like if this is a budget one or something. It feels like there's some cut corners in this one.
Yeah.
To me. I mean, like, plenty of things looked fine. Rodan looks great until it starts moving.
Mm-hmm.
Rodan looks a little rough when it's moving, mainly because they had to use so much rubber to get the wings right that the wings end up kind of flopping around a lot. I don't know. They work in weird ways. Later Rodan costumes will solve that issue, but then they kind of fuck up the face. I think the face is the best looking part of the Rodan suit. And later Rodan suits are going to have a really gnarly looking face that's really unfortunate.
Mm.
The flying Rodans look generally fine, which are mostly puppets. The only instances where there's actually a guy in the suit, which is Haru and Nakajima again, our friend Godzilla, is when he's like landing.
Oh.
So that's the only time there's actually a man inside the suit for Rodan. Otherwise, it is a puppet. That doesn't stop the fact that they did in fact drop Haru Nakajima. So the scene where he's flying over the bridge, right?
Yeah.
He's in there. He's in the suit for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the pulley from which he's suspended broke, and he fell 25 feet.
Oh gosh.
Luckily, he fell into water, and also, like I said, those wings are full of rubber, and they broke the fall. So most of the impact was absorbed by the water and those wings. Very lucky on that.
Yeah.
This film, it takes a little bit of inspiration from UFO Tales. Obviously, it starts off with Rodan being. It doesn't start off. It starts off with the Mega Nulon stuff. But once the Rodan stuff starts coming out, it starts off as like a UFO kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I think about it? This kind of like them and the giant spider, tarantula. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of two movies in here.
Yeah.
There's the Mega Nulon movie that ends rather quickly, and then there's the Rodan movie after that. Although I think this one works a little bit better as far as that goes, although not perfectly.
Yeah, this one, they kind of at least have some connection.
Yeah, the Mega Nulon are food for the Rodan.
Yeah.
But then they run out of Mega Nulon to eat, so they start eating people and cows. You know, the English dub, which we're not going to watch here, does feature one of George Takei's first roles.
Oh, really?
I think it might have been his first role, in fact, because we mentioned he was in Gigantus the Fire Monster dub.
Mm-hmm.
But the Gigantus the Fire Monster dub wasn't until 59. So the Rodan dub was in 57. Somehow the Rodan dub came first. Came to America first.
So, as we were watching, one line that really stuck out to me, and you're normally the one on the show that grabs all the quotes, but I just had to write this one down because I just had to bring it up. I can't remember the name of the character, but like they were talking about how like, you know, we're in the age of science and like space and technology, and so like you know, like you like, how could there be dinosaurs back at it again? And and the guy he was talking to said something along the lines of like, nature is more mysterious than we can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that line speaks not just to this kaiju movie, but to basically almost every kaiju movie, if not every kaiju movie we've seen so far.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a big theme. Let's start talking about themes, because I think this movie actually has a lot to chew on as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So, I guess first off, let's talk about what some people say this movie is about. So if you're a hack, you think that Godzilla represents American nuclear power. It doesn't. It represents all nuclear power, and more specifically nuclear testing. But if you're a hack, you think it represents American nuclear power because all you can think about is America.
Mm-hmm.
So what does Rodan represent then? As it's a second kaiju. It's the second kaiju movie. So it must represent something that is in relation to Godzilla. Then obviously it has to. There's no way it can be that. Well, what other nuclear powers are there? Well, what about the Soviet Union?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, Rodan must be the Soviet Union. That's it. That's their theory. If you think this, you're a fucking moron, and I hate you. You're a fucking moron. You couldn't read the back of a cereal box. Oh my fucking god. This is the stupidest thing ever, because this movie mentions nuclear shit once ever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, maybe Rodan is alive because of radiation. Anyways, back to this movie about environmentalism.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is not just a movie about environmentalism. This movie has so many themes, and none of them are, oh, I'm really scared of the Soviet Union, guys.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is never mentioned. Russians are never mentioned. Rodan comes from Japan. He's in the fucking mountain. He comes from the earth. So stop. Rodan is not the Soviet Union. Godzilla is not America. King Ghidorah is not China. Shut up. Okay. With that out of the way, what is the movie actually about then? If it's not about the Soviet Union, what is it actually about? Well, first off, this movie begins in a coal mine.
Yeah.
And not only that, a coal mining town. This whole town is set up to operate this coal mine. Now, I don't know much about Japan's coal mining history, but I know a little thing or two about America's coal mining history, and I know a company town when I see one.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying to you, Haru, my dear, is that the Meganulons are the managers, and Rodan is the bourgeoisie, and the Meganulon eat the workers, and then Rodan eats the Meganulon.
Huh.
It's a metaphor for capitalism.
Okay. I can dig it.
And that's why the fucking miners are the ones that are getting eaten by the fucking Meganulon. The Meganulon represents the harsh conditions of the mine. The mine chews the people up and spits them out. You notice how the Meganulon don't really finish eating most of the people? They just take a bite out of them and then leave them to die.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you also notice how at the beginning of the film, some of those miners had the coal dust covered face. These fuckers are not wearing masks. They're gonna get black lung.
Yeah.
The mine is chewing them up, spitting them out, and they all so that Rodan can eat and get big and big and big and destroy the world. But That's only one interpretation of the film. There's also another, probably more obvious interpretation. An important line said towards the beginning of the film is something along the lines of, you see all this coal being drug out of the mine, but the people working the mine are saying that it's getting harder and harder to find the coal because they're running out. They've depleted the mine, and they've been absolutely destroying the environment. And all for this fossil fuel. And something someone mentions at the beginning of the film is the theory, quote unquote, of global warming. That is in 1956, but they do mention global warming here.
Yeah, that stood out to me. I think that was just like, I don't know if it was a major part of the film theme or if it was just kind of dropped in there, but I like to think it was a major part of the theme.
I am proposing to you, my dear Haru, that it is the most important theme in the movie. The labor thing, I think that's a minor theme, and probably one that is not as intentional as I would like it to be. I think it's more of an accidental thing that it happens to be pretty funny. I think the environmental theme is the theme of the movie. The mine workers or the mine company, I should say, in their quest for more and more coal, have dug too deep. Rodan is the earth protecting itself, destroying mankind, and then we fucking kill them.
Yeah.
And that's why the movie ends on such a somber note, with one Rodan being unable to get away from the volcano and dying, and the other one going to die with it. It could have gotten away, but it chose to die with it. This movie is about how we treat the planet and how the planet will treat us in kind, and how we'll eventually just kill it all.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding of a lot of Japanese media, environment plays a role in some way or another, whether it be a major role or a minor role. And like, I think especially with the kaiju films we've seen, specifically the Japanese ones, like the role of the environment in kind of how the beast comes from nature, it comes from Earth, and humans have to kind of like stand up to it and survive against it, because it's basically like, it's a virtually unstoppable natural force. And like, it manifests in a few different ways. Like in the case of Godzilla, what's considered natural is kind of maybe a little bit more disaster focused, like natural disasters, and also just like, not that the fire bombings of Tokyo were natural, but the way fire spreads as as like the way fire behaves is part of nature, and this is why we need to like respect and be wary of nature. But Rodan is more like, it's more of a focus on, like you said, the fossil fuel industry, the like scrounging for resources that people do and end up like basically messing with something you shouldn't have.
This dug too deep narrative is a fairly common one these days, but I think it's exactly what's going on here. Like, you wouldn't have unleashed the Meganulon or Rodan if you hadn't dug so deep, and that deep digging is what woke them and caused the collapse of the mountain. Like, there's a huge environmental toll. And then when it comes time to like actually deal with the Rodan, they're like, okay, let's just blow up the volcano that the Rodans are living in. And the guy is like, don't do that. You're gonna just like he just says like the militaries are like, no, we're gonna evacuate all the people. Don't worry about it. We're gonna evacuate everyone. And he's like, that's not it though. There's also the forest and the lakes and everything. Like, I'm not just worried about the people. I'm worried about the land too. And they go ahead with that anyways, and they kill the Rodans.
Yeah.
Killing Earth's last defense against humanity.
I'm trying to think of a good analogy for that, but like it's basically just you're completely destroying the environment just to spite this one thing that, like, not that Rodan wasn't a big problem for humanity. Like, it was a big threat, but like it's kind of a, like, do the ends really justify the means? Like, could you not have thought of some other way of dealing with Rodan?
It's a tough question in the scope of the movie. But yeah, I think this is like it's a metaphor so thuddingly obvious that I assume it must be something about the dub or something like that causes people to not get it. I don't know, maybe the dub removes some of the environmentalist messages or something. I have no idea. There's got to be something that's causing people not to understand this, though, because it seems so obvious, right? It's very in your face.
Yeah.
The characters like literally turn to the camera and go, I think we should treat the environment better. Meanwhile, the mine company turns to the camera and says, the theory of global warming.
Yeah.
So if you're like watching this film and then coming away from it going, yes, this is about the Soviet Union and Japanese fears of Soviet nuclear power, I think you should be hit on the head with a hammer. Until you have a bloody helmet like that one pilot that Rodan killed. That was pretty fucking raw.
Yeah.
That bloody helmet was crazy.
Yeah, no, like, there's kind of, like, there's reading between the lines, and then there's completely disregarding the theme that was handed to you on a silver platter.
Yeah, if people don't get the capitalism metaphor that I saw, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. That's just a me thing. I mean, I feel like it fits pretty well, but like, it's not like an intentional thing. I'm 90% sure.
Yeah.
But if you don't see the environmentalist thing, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And if you find it's Soviet Union thing instead, I think you should be institutionalized.
Like, really, the Soviet Union thing comes across more just like a conspiracy than anything else.
It feels, it's just like fucking white people who can't imagine that people aren't thinking about them constantly.
Yeah.
It's on a similar note, like, I find it interesting that, like, we like to talk a lot about Japan's, like, nuclear trauma and how much it affects Japanese media. But, like, this film has nothing, like, barely anything at all to do with nuclear anything. Meanwhile, how many of the American films that we've watched have been about nuclear bullshit?
Yeah.
Like, they're not super about it, but they're always like, the nuclear bomb made this monster. Anyways.
Yeah, and, like, really, a lot of that just is,
it just
like,
comes out of Godzilla.
This is the time period where literally Americans were obsessed with the concept of, like, nuclear power and radioactivity, and, like, this was the time period where you could go down to the store and buy your kid a toy science set that had actual uranium in it.
Yeah. I think to an extent there's like two factors at play here. Like one is American nuclear mania being extrapolated onto Japan, and then the other one is Godzilla being an actual nuclear fear movie. And like the two combined just breaks Americans' brains. I could be wrong on that, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, we're still honestly kind of to this day obsessed with nuclear anything. Not to the same degree as we were in like the 50s, but
I mean, we still describe things as like something times the power of the Hiroshima bomb, you know?
Yeah.
We're always hearkening back to 1945.
Yeah, and like, I mean, even these days, like, we've got a fairly significant focus on nuclear energy as an energy source, and like the number of times I see a conversation on just like Tumblr or Reddit that just randomly refers to nuclear energy is a surprising amount, considering the fact that I don't really think about it all that often.
Yeah. So that's like, I guess that's the themes of this film. I think that's pretty much the main things going on in here.
Mm-hmm.
We do drop the mine town like pretty, much like them and Tarantula. We do kind of just drop this small town angle, like halfway through the movie, and it becomes the government doing things show.
Yeah,
but at least it is like this commentary on the government killing the creatures instead of. Which I think Rodan has a better case for this than Godzilla does, right? Because Godzilla, the creature is actually coming into Tokyo and killing like thousands of people. Rodan has killed, I guess it did destroy a city, but it was a small city. I don't know. I feel like you keep disturbing Rodan and it keeps coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit more of this like, but still not great.
So like,
it's not a perfect metaphor, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I have a couple thoughts. Like, one thought I kind of forgot, but maybe I'll remember it. But another thought is just an interesting note in how, like, this movie actually kind of addresses the international focus a little. Well, not focus, but it addresses that, like, this is affecting more than just Japan.
Yeah. And it does it in a way that also shows how fast Rodan is.
Yeah.
Because Rodan is just like flying to China, to the Philippines, to Okinawa, then back to this mining town.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The other point I was thinking of was kind of how the movie's actually kind of a little bit more fast-paced, which, like, I don't mind. Like, some movies handle a slower pace in a good enough way where I still care about the movie. But also, like, this movie handles its pace fairly well. I don't think it's the best paced movie that we've seen.
Yeah.
But it at least manages to keep my attention and up until like the end sequence where they were just firing rockets at Rodan for 20 minutes. But like for the first hour of the movie, it's fairly well paced, and it does just jump right into the action. Like, we've seen quite a few kaiju movies, and I think probably over half of them do it where it's kind of like a slow burn. Like, over the course of the movie, they're kind of like, something's going on, there's some sort of creature killing people that we don't know about, and then all of a sudden in the final act of the film it's like, oh, it's a giant monster, let's kill it.
Yeah.
This time around, it is just straight, and like with the way it plays the two different arcs of like, there's the not tiny, but like there's the little grub things, and then there's the pterodon. Like, in a way, that kind of does, like, it kind of does leave Rodan just up in the air. No pun intended. Until we actually, like, see it, and, like... So, yeah, like, we do jump right into the action, and people know something's going on, but they don't know that Rodan is well, maybe not behind everything, but is, like, a force to be reckoned with and something to be aware of, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also, I just kind of like how, it felt similar to me the way Godzilla depicted the, like, you know, early scene with the ship that gets destroyed by Godzilla, and we get we get to see a scene of basically a bunch of family members of the crew people that were on the ship going, like, being very distraught because their loved ones ended up getting killed. And we see a bit of that again here, where it's just sort of a reminder of, like, these are, like, actual people that are being affected instead of it just being, like, a plot of a story kind of thing. Because, like, we see, like, the first miner that ends up getting killed, we see, like, his wife and baby that come to, you know, her husband's dead, and it's a very distressing scene.
And they have this red herring of a guy who was in a fight with him before, maybe being the killer.
Yeah.
And then his sister having to be like, having to live in this mining camp while he's a suspected killer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know. I liked the early bits of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly more than the later bits.
The early movie builds tension and suspense really well. And the only problem with it is that the Meganulon are not particularly well-made suits.
Yeah.
And in particular, the fight they have with them on the mountain looks goofy as hell. Particularly, like, when it's like I guess the Meganulon slips or something. Maybe it gets killed. I don't know what happens to it. It just falls down the mountain with the two guys it was grabbing. Although also the scene where it's like his little tiny arms are like swinging around the two guys is also pretty silly.
Yeah.
I literally wrote in my notes, "Oops, it tripped." Like, I don't know what else to call it. But they another like tarantula them kind of thing. They have this insect chitter.
Yeah.
To like build this tension of the unknown creature. I want to talk a little bit about matte paintings.
Yeah?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about matte paintings because this movie is full of them. There's a ton of them. This movie has so many matte paintings. It has more matte paintings than it has kaiju. So I don't know if you noticed this one. This is probably the best matte painting effect in the entire movie. And it's also one of the first ones. But the cave in when the mountain caves in and that huge earth effect that they do when everyone drives up the road and the road is just gone.
Mm-hmm.
What's beyond the road is actually a matte painting of the caved in earth. So that's actually a painting that was screened in that little section there, and that looks actually quite nice.
Yeah,
like really impressive actually. What does not look so good is the painting of China and the painting of the Philippines and the painting of Okinawa.
Yeah.
When they do that little scene where Rodan's going all across the world. The painting of China looks bad. The painting of the Philippines looks pretty bad. The one for Okinawa looks better because they put it behind a door. And they added like a palm tree to give it some depth. But otherwise, those are pretty rough. And then they immediately cut to these like basically empty radio booths to like represent, oh, this is the radio station of the local area talking about this. And it just looks like a dungeon, each one of them.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean when I say like I feel like this one has some corners cut. Another similar thing is that I think they didn't have the time for reshoots, perhaps, because in the scene where the buses are evacuating, the one lady that's calling out to everyone to go on the buses is smiling the whole time. I don't know if that's supposed to be like, oh, she's like on duty and she's smiling, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case, and that would just be me being incredibly generous. I think what the case is that she was just smiling because she was in a movie and she was having fun. Which, fair enough. It must be fun to be in a movie, especially a kaiju movie.
Yeah.
But please stop smiling. You're in a movie. You're ruining the shot. Another note I have here is actually kind of fun. This is just a little thing I noticed. When they suspect that Goro is the killer of the first mine guy, they're like, oh, they do the autopsy. It's like, oh, something really sharp killed this man. Maybe a sword? A Japanese sword, they say specifically.
Yeah.
They specifically say a Japanese sword. That glorious Nippon steel. And when they do that, they're like, how would you get a sword into the mine? And like, to me, it's like, you bring one in? Like,
yeah.
But like, there's laws there.
Yeah.
They actually have laws about that shit there. As opposed to here, where you could probably bring an AR-15 into the fucking mine.
Yeah.
So that was just like something funny I noticed. I was like, oh yeah, they would actually have laws against that, wouldn't they? But can you bring a Rodan into the mine?
I don't know. Are we talking egg form or dinosaur form?
I think egg form quickly becomes dinosaur form. Although not too quickly. I guess it has been like several million years.
Yeah.
Also, another thing is that our friend, the main character, what's his face? Kaomura. That's right. I was like, it's not. I know it's not something. What is it? Kaomura. Kaomura gets amnesia because of the shock of seeing the Rodans. And I guess probably the falling rocks and shit. So, dude, this guy is invincible. He survives getting trapped in the mine. He survives the Rodan, the giant, all the Meganulon and the Rodan, and then he survives the fucking cave-in.
Yeah.
He's invincible. He's immortal.
Got plot armor.
And all he gets out of it is a amnesia and a bit of a head wound. So he's got amnesia, and they're trying to get him to remember everything. And so they start showing him pictures of dinosaurs for some reason.
Yeah.
I feel like they were jumping the gun on the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, showing the dinosaur scene.
Yeah. So, and take this with a grain of salt because I'm not a medical expert. I don't know how amnesia works. But personally...
Is it common practice to show them dinosaurs?
Personally, I don't think, like, that's how you treat a patient of someone who's just severely injured and traumatized and now suffers from amnesia is like...
And seems to be mute, too. He doesn't talk at all.
Yeah. And you just show him pictures and like, see, this is the dinosaur that you saw. Do you remember it?
And they don't know about it yet. And they're like, here, dinosaur. Look, it's a dinosaur. Is this anything to you? Because he hasn't been able to talk this whole time, so he hasn't been able to tell them that he saw a dinosaur. Or a pteranodon, which is not a dinosaur technically, but... Mm-hmm. So he's like sitting there looking at these fucking dinosaur pictures going like, what the fuck am I looking at? And I'm like again, they're just jumping the gun on the fucking Beast from 20,000 Fathoms scene where they show the guy all the dinosaur pictures and he's like, that's the one I saw. Because they jumped the gun, the guy can't be like, that's the one I saw, and they never get to the pteranodon, which is in the pile of images, but he never gets to see it. Mm-hmm. Instead, they later pull out the images and compare them to a photo that a guy accidentally took of Rodan before he got eaten by Rodan.
Yeah.
And somehow this painting of Pteranodon is in the same pose as Rodan is in this picture.
Yeah.
So they could compare the wing and the claw that they barely got a picture of. And remember, Rodan moves at supersonic speeds. How did he get this picture of this fucking beast?
Yeah, some of the plot points with how the characters connect the dots as to what Rodan is kind of take pretty big leaps in logic.
Yeah, it's a little rough around the edges on that. Which is like fine, I guess. But I think it lends credence to this idea that this movie feels a little bit rushed.
Yeah.
Like we're cribbing things from other movies where we're making a Megalodon suit that kind of looks like a little bit bad.
Yeah.
We're making these awful looking matte paintings.
Like when it comes to when it comes to the plot points where the plot progresses, like the guy matching up the picture with the Pteranodon, like I wouldn't mind that as much if it at least took its time getting to that point. Mm-hmm. Like it feels like a very like first draft storytelling, just like oh, and then he matches up the picture and that's how he finds out what the thing is.
And they didn't really think about it beyond that.
Yeah, like if it was kind of a build up, like there's this picture that this guy's deliberating over, and then like he's like, oh, what could that be? What's that little like? It looks like a wing. And then, like, maybe we come to another scene later on where he's like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize that shape. Like, something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe I could suspend my disbelief for that kind of plot progression. But, like, the way it just jumps forward at each step, because the plot wants to progress, and they didn't take their time to write this.
Yeah. So it's a little rough around the edges, but I think overall the film still works really well.
Yeah.
It's another Ishiro Honda banger, although not nearly as much of a banger as Godzilla. Mm-hmm. Probably, where would you compare this to Godzilla Raids Again?
Probably above it.
I would agree. I think Godzilla Raids Again is rougher around the edges than this film is, which makes sense because this film had an extra year to get made.
Yeah. Like Godzilla Raids Again had that just silly sequence with the like escaped convicts stealing the tanker truck.
Yeah, this one doesn't have any contrived shit like that.
It's like, oh no, we rode ourselves into a corner. How do we get out?
Real quick, I want to roast another American critic. Here on the Wikipedia page, it says, writing for Famous Monsters of Filmland, which is a magazine, a monster magazine, Joe Dante included the film in his list of the 50 worst horror films in 1962, declaring it another routine Japanese prehistoric monster on the loose melodrama, which was inferior to many U.S. productions. Did you watch them? Did you watch the U.S. productions? Because I have. They're not good. Did you watch fucking them? Look, I've been comparing Rodan to them a lot here. I think Rodan comes out the champ on that one.
Yeah.
I think it comes out the champ on Tarantula too, although Tarantula's a much better movie than them too. The only conceivable way I could think of Rodan being on the 50 worst horror films is the fact that it's 1962 and there hasn't been that many horror films yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the only conceivable way I could think of it. And I don't even think that's necessarily true either. I hate Americans.
Yeah.
I was going to say Americans who write about kaiju films. I think I'm just going to leave it at Americans. Most of them are hacks. There's a few good ones.
Mm-hmm.
I got a new book recently about the tokusatsu, like the special effects departments of the Toho films and later special effects films, kaiju films like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading that. It's been very nice. So there are good books out there, but you got to find them.
Oh, I'm not sure I have much else to say about Rodan.
That film that movie, but not movie. Goddamn, that book, by the way, is Japanese special effects cinema, Godfathers of Tokusatsu.
Mm. Go check it out at your local library if they have it.
They probably don't, so make them order it, which you can do at most libraries. You can tell them to order things. I also got another book I need to dig into. I don't know if this is good yet or not, but it looks like it should be, called Japan's Green Monsters, Environmental Commentary in Kaiju Cinema, which, probably is a pretty good read in regards to this film.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine they have to talk about this film, right? They must.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll definitely talk about the Mothra film which we'll get to at some point soon. But yeah, I think I'm about tapped out on this film as well. So we're actually done with 1956 now.
Woohoo!
1956, a short year, but a good year. Beast of Hollow Mountain and Rodan.
Yeah.
Two bangers. Next year... next year is a weird way to put it. Next episode, which will be the next year in our timeline, we'll be covering Kronos. Kronos is one I don't know anything about.
It sounds like it's either going to be actually surprisingly good or horrendously shitty.
Well, it's black and white. We're back to black and white. We had a brief 1 year break from black and white with both Beast from Hollow Mountain and Rodan, and now we're back to black and white. Also known as Kronos, Destroyer of the Universe, or Kronos, Ravager of Planets.
Oh, okay. I'm very curious. What kind of beast is this? Although don't spoil it for me because I want to watch the movie.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for you because I'm looking at it right now and I'm not going to spoil it for you. You're going to need to see this. You're going to need to see this.
It's a lizard.
Woo! Lizard. Yeah. So I guess we're gone from Toho yet again. We will return to Toho soon. We just got to get through the year 1957 first. At the end of 1957, we go back to Toho for the Mysterians. And then we get to watch Varan. But until then, we've got a lot of American movies to get through. Kronos, the Deadly Mantis, 20 Million Miles to Earth, The Giant Claw, Beginning of the End, The Black Scorpion. 3 of those are giant insect movies, by the way.
I think giant insects are all the rage now.
Apparently. Some of these are bad, Haru. Some of these are bad. We're gonna have to watch them, and they're bad. Oh well. We'll get there when we get there, and we won't get there until we get there.
That's how it goes.
Thank you so much for watching. Watching? I've been doing this podcast this is the 19th episode now, and I'm still saying watching. I guess I do run a YouTube channel, so. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found, and that's what you can tell your friends when you share this podcast to them. That's the best way to make podcasts grow, so it would be really, really helpful if you could do that for us. Any podcatcher, or, the YouTube channel, Ian. That's where you can find this podcast. Just send them right over, or put a review on whatever podcast app you use. That'll help people who also use the same app find us. Haru, where can people find you, specifically?
I am Haru Hayes. You can find me on Twitch, where I stream occasionally. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm also on Discord. Those are like the main places you can find me. So yeah, just be sure to check me out. My Blue Sky is haru.vspire.live. I've been in the process of trying to get myself to post more there again. Posting on social media is hard.
I find it quite easy.
I used to, and then I hit several different burnouts.
Well, you also started doing things in real life.
Yeah.
Which hopefully I'll be able to do soon. Speaking of, you can find me at Ian wherever you might want to find me. That includes Blue Sky. That includes YouTube. That includes, of course, Twitch. Everyone's favorite website, twitch.tv. Ugh. You can also find my other YouTube channels like Tomb of Ian, where all my Let's Plays go. Ian, where this podcast goes. Ian, which is, of course, my main channel where I do Yu-Gi-Oh! Video essays, like the most recent one about Nibiru. If you like me talking about pseudoscience here, pseudoscience and pseudohistory here, which I've done several times now, you'll love this. You don't have to know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh! It's all about the history behind a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. So it has barely anything to do with Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. You don't have to know Yu-Gi-Oh! It's going to be fun. You just watch it. And you can also, of course, check out my new YouTube channel for my music, Yuri Riot, which is the new name of my new project. My old project, Lunacharsky's Radical Synth Board, is, of course, still available, and will be producing things occasionally, but I've got some new things along the way that will make sense in the future. So, there you go.
Hell yeah.
All right. You ready to say sayonara to Rodan?
Yeah.
Sayonara, Rodan.
Sayonara, Rodan.
And I guess sayonara, Meganulon, too. We won't see you for quite a while.